Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hounds, and I'm out and about again in the woods, and while I'm here I thought I'd do a video looking at a certain subgenre of films in the kind of when nature attacks style. So killer animals, ecological horrors, whatever you want to call it, but after Jaws, which won't be in this video because I talk about Jaws enough, but after Jaws was released, we got an abundance of these kind of killer animal movies, which kind of all followed a similar plot. It was an animal or animals killing people off somewhere. It was usually a very populated place or a touristy place that they couldn't close down for monetary reasons, and then the animals usually killed off a few people until the authorities sent someone out to kill the animal once and for all. Usually the people that they sent out, it was usually a sheriff, a wildlife expert and a rogue hunter of some kind. It all kind of followed the same template that Jaws did. But lots and lots of these kind of killer animal movies came out in the 70s, and it's actually a subgenre of horror that is one of my favourites. I always love these kind of movies, and these movies I always feel they're kind of like forgotten now. They very much exist in like this 1970s time, and a lot of these movies were really good films, even though they were kind of dismissed as sort of Jaws clones. A lot of them are really good films, so I'm going to go through the ones that I have that at least that I really enjoyed and that I think are worthwhile checking out if you like these kind of movies from the 70s. So these are my 1970s when nature attacks movies. So the first film is a TV movie from 1977, and it's Ants. So in this, they build this kind of state-of-the-art hotel complex, but they build it on top of like a giant ant's nest. So the angry ants, they come out, they start climbing over the building and all over the guests and people, and start I guess biting everyone to death. But it's a fun film. It's got Robert Foxworth in it and Brian Dennehy. Both of those do a really good job. And what's really cool about Ants is it really is ants crawling over the actors and actresses. I thought it'd be like unconvincing dots patched onto everyone, but no, they do have real ants running all over them. So credit to the people that are in this film. They really do kind of go through it in that sense. But if you're looking for first of all a good TV movie and a good ecological horror, Ants is definitely worth checking out. It's a good movie. Okay, next movie is The Bees from 1978. So in this one we got killer bees on the loose, John Saxon having to kind of do something about it. But I watched this once, and that was when Vinegar Syndrome first brought this one out, but it was a good film. I enjoyed it. Again, if you're into like killer bees, killer bugs, ecological horrors, I don't think you'll be disappointed by this one. So that's The Bees. Okay, next up we go on to some rodents with Ben. So this was the sequel to Willard. Willard will be on this list as well. I'm just going alphabetically. This was 1972, I believe. I'm just going off memory with the years, so forgive me if I get it wrong. But yeah, 1972, Ben, this kid befriends this rat, Ben, who kind of, if I remember right, he does his bidding, and if anyone's like mean to this kid, Ben sort of steps in and starts killing people. I actually prefer this one to Willard. I thought this one was really good, and I think this has like this has a song from Michael Jackson as well, which was somewhat out of place but still a good song. So yeah, Ben was pretty cool. Okay, next up from, I think this is 1975, we have Bug. This one is Killer Cockroaches. I actually don't remember this. I don't remember anything about it, but it's a killer bug movie from the 70s, so I thought I'd stick it onto the list. I know Scream Factory's recently bought this out on Blu-ray, but yeah, Bug. Okay, next up we have Day of the Animals from about 1977. So in this, I think it's the ozone layer has affected the animals and turned them all violent, and a wide variety of animals are all attacking people, and it takes place in like this national park where a bunch of guests and tourists are going round, and of course all the animals at the time start attacking them. It's a good film. It's worth watching for Leslie Nielsen. If you want to see Leslie Nielsen play a giant douchebag character, check out Day of the Animals. He's a real like gruff, violent, not very nice guy. Great performance from him. This was his pre-comedy days, and yeah, he's a really kind of sinister, intimidating guy. But again, one of the more famous and popular ones from this series of films as well. Day of the Animals, definitely one that I can recommend. Okay, next up from, so that's 1976 I think, is Devildog. This is a cool film. Richard Crenna, he gets a dog, it's a German Shepherd dog I think, and it's a devil dog, a hound of Satan, and it's got sort of dark powers and causes the death of a few people. It's pretty good, and there's a few kind of creepy scenes with the dog. The scene when the wife is reading something in the living room and the dog sat looking at her, and she keeps holding the newspaper up and down, and as she does, the dog gets closer to her. Really good stuff. I enjoyed Devildog. Been a long time since I've seen it though. And then sticking with dogs, we have Dogs, 1976 I think, with David McCallum. He's in this one, there's all these killer dogs that start killing people in this town. He has to try and get to the bottom of it. Again, I've not seen it for a while, but I enjoyed it. Next up, one of my favourites from this subgenre from 1976, Food of the Gods. This one is really good. It takes place kind of like in a setting like this, and a bunch of animals they've been tampered with, and they've grown to a giant size. So we have giant rats, a giant chicken, a few other things as well. It's really good, really fun film. I think probably a few people would snigger at the effects of this one now because they're not great, but it's just how the movies were made back then, and it's really cool that they made this kind of film. And I think the giant animals look pretty good in this for what it is. So yeah, this is one of my favourites that I would definitely recommend. This is a must-see of killer animal ecological horrors. Food of the Gods. Okay, next up we have Frogs, which actually predates Jaws. This is 1972. So Ray Milland, he's like this grumpy guy. He owns this big house in like the swampland. I think he has like a birthday party, and all these guests come along, but there are killer frogs abound that start picking off the guests one by one. It's a fun film. You do have to kind of go with the idea that fully grown men and women can fall over and be overpowered and overwhelmed by frogs, but if you can get over that, there's a lot of fun to be had in this. Got a young Sam Elliott in this as well, who's very cool, as he is in everything that he does. Yeah, Frogs is a fun one. Next up, another very fun one, the giant spider invasion. Literally a small sleepy town gets invaded by giant spiders, and in this, it's almost like they built giant spiders on top of these little dinky cars, and then I guess they drive the cars while these big spiders waving the legs around everywhere and scaring people. It's a very fun film. Very tacky and low budget, but really fun. Okay, next one of my favourites of this kind of movie is Grizzly. So this one about a killer bear in a national park killing people off. It's almost scene for scene the same as Jaws. It literally is the same story, same series of events, same characters, identical to Jaws, but a film that I really like. I really enjoy Grizzly. It's a great movie. The bear in it's cool. The actors do a good job. A little bit cheesy, but it's got some pretty scary moments as well. And very nice cinematography in this as well, because of where it's set. There's some very nice scenes and very nice to look at. So again, like I say, one of my all-time favourites, definitely one I'd recommend, is Grizzly. Next up, from around 1977, is Kingdom of the Spiders. William Shatner battling these killer spiders that overwhelm this town. So if you don't like tarantulas crawling all over people, maybe avoid this one. It's a really good film. Again, like ants, the actors go through it, they get covered in tarantulas and things like that. Another one that I've always really enjoyed. Okay, then we have, I think this was another one that predates Jaws. I think this is from about 1972, Night of the Leprous. So these are giant rabbits. Yeah, giant rabbits attack this town. I have no idea what a leprous is. I assume it must be something to do with a rabbit. If anyone knows, I've always been interested in what a leprous is. But yeah, giant rabbits attack this town, and Stuart Whitman, I think it's Janet Leigh. Yeah, Janet Leigh have to do battle against them. It's another fun one. I enjoyed that. Okay, next up, definitely a Jaws clone. We have Orca with Richard Harris. He's like a whale hunter, and if I remember right, he kills an orca whale, and its mate or something takes revenge on him, and they have a pretty cool confrontation at the end in the Arctic or something, if I remember right. It wasn't one that I was massively keen on. This does seem to get quite decent reviews. Yeah, I wasn't that fussed. It's okay. Haven't watched it for a long time, but definitely one of the staple movies from this time and of this kind of genre. Okay, next up we have The Pack from about 77, I think. It's what's his name? Joe Don Baker. He goes to this little island, and they are being attacked by packs of killer dogs. I've only watched this once, but this was really good. I was surprised how good this was and how much I enjoyed it. I'd like to watch it again, to be honest. But yeah, another killer dog one, and another solid film from this this subgenre. Okay, next up we have Piranha, another Jaws clone. Maybe the best Jaws clone in my opinion. I really like Piranha. This batch of killer piranha are accidentally released into this kind of public river, and so they of course go cruising down there and start chomping on the guests and everyone using it, and Bradford Dillman and Kevin McCarthy and Heather Menzies, yeah, Heather Menzies, they have to sort of find a way to stop it. Really good. This kind of scared me a bit when I was younger as well, but it's got some humorous moments as well. So yeah, highly recommend it. I'm sure most people have seen Piranha, but if you want a very good, very fun Jaws rip-off, this is a must-watch. But yeah. Next up, another fantastic film that really goes under the radar, I think, from 1979, is Prophecy. So Robert Foxworth, again in settings like this, he is an environmentalist, and he has to investigate this kind of this factory in the middle of this forest that's supposedly kind of dumped toxins in the water, and it's affected the animals, and it's kind of turned them into mutants and things like that. So there's like a mutant bear and all kinds of weird mutated creatures. It's a really good film, like a seriously good film. It's got a good kind of ecological message. Robert Foxworth's fantastic in it. The effects are great. It's got some great practical monsters in it. I highly recommend Prophecy. It's one of the most underrated films in my opinion. Next up we have The Savage Bees. So another killer bee movie. This is a pretty good film. I enjoyed this, but this DVD is a terrible transfer. It looks awful, and I don't think the audio syncs up either, and I think it gets progressively worse as the film goes along. So at the start of the film there's only a slight difference. By the end of the film there's like 10 minutes difference from what they're saying and what's going on. So good film, but I don't recommend this Cheesy Flicks DVD, unfortunately. Then we have quite possibly my favourite film from this time and this subgenre, Squirm. So set in this sleepy little town, they have a really bad thunder and lightning storm. The lightning comes down and it surges into the ground and turns these worms all crazy, and they come up to the surface and burrow into people's skin and things like that. It's such a cool film, and I remember seeing this on TV when I was a young kid, and just being fascinated by the concept of killer worms. It's such an amazing movie, one of my favourite horror films of all time, not just this subgenre, but definitely a must-watch in this category if you want to get into this this genre, or check out a few you haven't seen. Definitely check out Squirm, it's awesome. Okay, next one, back to the killer bees with The Swarm. So this is Michael Caine having to try and stop like a travelling giant swarm of killer bees. I like this film. It's often kind of dismissed as a bit of a terrible one, but I think it's really good. It's a very long film. It's on the way to 3 hours, I think, if I remember right, but it's packed with stars of the time, and this kind of mixes like the ecological horror films and the like the disaster films that were popular at that time as well. So I like it. It's a very long film for what it is, easily the longest film on this list. But if you like these kind of films, you like killer bees, check out The Swarm. And then we have another Jaws clone, Tintorera. I have mentioned this a couple of times recently. It's an enjoyable film. I think, as I said in another video, it's like a mix of killer shark film, soap opera, and like grindhouse exploitation filmmaking. But the killer shark moments in it are pretty good. And then the last one from the early 70s, 1971, is Willard. So this guy here who can like channel rats, and after a bit he kind of uses them to kind of kill off people that have done them wrong, if I remember right. Ernest Borgnine's in it, who plays like this horrible boss or landlord or something, and he ends up getting covered in these rats at the end because he's done Willard wrong over something. This is okay, strange one, interesting film. Not one of my favourites on the list, but definitely worth checking out. As I say, I prefer Ben, the sequel, but Willard is still an interesting one. So that's, I think, most of the killer animal films I have from the 70s. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. Hope you got some good recommendations in that. If there's any movies that I haven't mentioned that you like and you want to recommend, please let me know. Definitely love to check them out. As I say, it's one of my favourite subgenres. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.